Welcome to the micro video HIPAA Tips for the New Requirements and Audits. My name is Lisa Rinehart and I'm a nurse attorney who's a consultant to reproductive medicine practices across the country. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act was enacted in 1996 with the main purpose of protecting the personal health information, or PHI, of patients. The previous rules allowed for retroactive reviews if something went wrong and the healthcare provider, a covered entity in HIPAA speak, was caught releasing PHI inappropriately. Today, the reach of the privacy and security rules, the new why and how of patient information protection, respectively, not only requires compliance by more healthcare service providers and organizations, it's expanded the role of HHS's Office of Civil Rights to include HIPAA audits. Today's audits are generally random and designed to find risks and vulnerabilities that are unknown to the government or may go unreported through the complaint process. While these may be very scary, there are, however, a few steps that any organization can take to put itself in a much better position to prepare and survive a HIPAA audit. Phase 1 audits actually began in 2013, and it took many covered entities by surprise. Auditors focused on all HIPAA standards, and most audited entities were found to have areas of non-compliance. In fact, over 90% had findings that needed correction. Key areas were risk assessment and fraud prevention. This year, on-site audits are underway at a number of covered entities and business associates. Phase 2 audits will focus on the key non-compliance areas noted in Phase 1 and areas associated with security of PHI. There will also be an effort to discern best practices. These audits will no doubt uncover gaps and may even expose covered entities and business associates to civil money penalties if a serious violation is uncovered. There are, however, a few steps that any organization can take to put itself in a much better position to prepare and survive a HIPAA audit. Here's how you can get audit ready. Audit ready tip number 1, organize your information. One of the biggest challenges of any type of audit is being able to lay your hands on the documentation that will be reviewed. Preparing your paperwork ahead of time is essential, as in these HIPAA audits there will be limited time, generally 10 to 14 days, to produce everything once you receive an OCR audit letter. Just as important is making sure that your compliance personnel are correctly identified and that documentation has been reviewed so that it meets current requirements. Phase 2 audits are not going to allow for clarification or explanation as they did in Phase 1, so make sure that all policies are clear and that they correspond to the technology and procedures you are now using, such as tablets and cloud storage. Remember to update policies on security, breach notification, PHI storage, transfer, and disposal. Also make sure that your employees are aware of these policies and are following them. Managers are notorious for using binders to retain necessary documentation at hand, but as far as HIPAA audits are concerned, these binders are critical as they're easy to assemble, update, and produce when needed. Audit ready tip number 2, focus on business associates. Covered entities interact with many individuals and entities in caring for our patients and operating our businesses. The omnibus rule that came into play in 2013 requires that you have a business associate agreement with each of these persons or companies, and it must contain specific language available at the hhs.gov website. While a covered entity does not have to monitor its BA's activities, it is responsible for reporting a BA's non-compliance and for acting to reduce the impact, such as terminating a contract. Since BAs are now required to follow HIPAA themselves, if you find out a BA is violating HIPAA, you're responsible for letting them know. During an audit, you must produce a list of your BAs and any BA agreements as part of your HIPAA compliance, and the BAs must also enter into business associate agreements with their subcontractors that may handle any PHI. Audit ready tip number 3, risk assessment. Mandated by the security rule, a security risk assessment document is seen by some HIPAA experts as the one document that you need to survive an audit. Designed to identify risks and vulnerabilities to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of electronic PHI, risk assessments should be scaled to the size and technological complexity of the entity. Under the security rule, you must ensure the CIA of all PHI created, received, maintained, and transmitted. You need to identify and protect against reasonably anticipated threats to the security and integrity of the information. You need to protect against reasonably anticipated impermissible uses or disclosures, and ensure compliance by your workforce. Remember, your exam is going to include document review, comparison with the rules, walkthroughs of your organization, and specific check of all key questions that I noted previously. Specific attention should be given to file encryption, which files are or are not encrypted, if your breach notification policy includes relevant state law, and that your notice of privacy practice is truly in place and not just a sign in the office. Audit ready tip number 4, risk management. Once areas of risk and vulnerability are identified, efforts must be made to prevent these potential threats from becoming actual liabilities, and follow-up is essential on the identified areas. From simple fixes, such as changing access passwords on a routine basis, to more complex and costly fixes, such as updating your server security by relocating hardware and installing new software, it is essential to analyze the identified risks and assess them for their ability to actualize. High risks and simple interventions should be immediately addressed. Less risky gaps may be prioritized and planned for gradual intervention. A written evidence of analysis and intervention for all identified risks and vulnerabilities is key to meeting an audit's requirements. Your written remediation plan and how you are implementing it is going to be looked at. Audit ready tip number 5, workforce training. The greatest asset of any company is generally its workforce. However, a good workforce needs adequate and timely training. In HIPAA privacy and security, the workforce can be the front line for breach prevention and privacy protection. Immediate training at hiring and routine updates of the general workforce are essential, as are periodic walking audits to remind and reinforce essential practices. Detailed security awareness should be specific to the technology that you use. In addition, creating a corporate culture of prevention, enlisting your workforce in early detection and mitigation of breaches can eliminate or reduce any potential liability. In summary, current HIPAA audits are a major change in how enforcement is going to be carried out, and they are intended to continue as the Office of Civil Rights tries to detect potential problem areas and define best practices. To be audit ready, you have to have your documents prepared, review your policy procedures and implementation, do a routine risk assessment, and follow your risk management plan with emphasis on security risks. And also make sure that your workforce is properly trained at hire and on a routine basis. All practices should prepare for the possibility of an audit, focus on electronic medical record security and employee training, and remember, any effort to comply will reduce your potential liability. Thank you, and good luck with your HIPAA audits.